But first tonight, let's start with the war in Israel and Lebanon. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is urging Australians in Lebanon to leave immediately as fighting escalates and war looks inevitable. This is the war Israel never wanted. It's the war Hezbollah has been provoking for nearly 12 months. Just one day after the October 7 attacks, when Israel was in shock, in mourning, and still fighting off the terrorists in the south, that's when Hezbollah began its onslaught in the north. Since then, the Iran proxy group has fired more than 8,000 rockets and deployed hundreds of attack drones. 48 people have been killed and hundreds injured. The missiles have been indiscriminate, intended to target Israeli civilians. And Hezbollah, don't forget, also killed 12 Israeli Druze children while they were playing soccer. These attacks, all of them, were clear acts of war from Hezbollah, unprovoked. If it weren't for Israel's high-tech defence systems, thousands more innocent civilians would have been killed. As it is, 80,000 families have been evacuated from their homes in northern Israel. And just recently, Israel made it clear that a new objective of the war was for these families to return home, for schools to reopen, for people to go back to work.
We will take whatever action is necessary to restore security and to bring our people safe back to their homes.
Now, this is an understandable objective, and it's led to Israel finally retaliating, first with a warning, the pager and walkie-talkie attacks. Then when Hezbollah didn't get the message, well, now Israel has carried out an assault on Hezbollah targets with 500 killed overnight. Now, Israel has begged the United Nations and the international community for help in stopping Hezbollah. This hasn't worked. Benjamin Netanyahu wants Hezbollah to retreat north of the so-called Blue Line or the Litani River. This would remove the threat of cross-border incursions. And it was the UN Secretary-General's 2000 declaration. Yet Foreign Minister Penny Wong here in Australia apparently doesn't support Israel daring to defend itself against a terror group that's been attacking its citizens almost daily for the past year.
Minister, hundreds dead overnight, apparently, in rapidly ramped up bombing raids by Israel, and you talk of de-escalation. Now, I know you're not pinning a lot of blame in your comments, but how can you avoid pinning some blame on Israel when it's ramping up hostilities like that?
Well, I again repeat what I said earlier, which we are deeply concerned by this escalation and the loss of civilian lives, and we would urge all parties to de-escalate.
And that's all we see from the Albanese government, constant criticism of Israel. Penny Wong says that Israel has the right to defend itself, but then when it does, against terrorism, she calls for Israel to de-escalate or to have a ceasefire. In other words, to lay down arms, to stop defending itself, to let its civilians get killed. The Prime Minister today also reiterated the same calls to stop Israel fighting terrorists.
Clearly, Penny Wong is signalling that people need to leave Lebanon. If they're Australian citizens, they should get out. Are you very fearful of a growing and all-out conflict in the Middle East?
Well, I am, and we have called for a de-escalation. We've called for a ceasefire. We've called for hostages to be released. And we've called, along with the United States, for the support for Joe Biden's peace plan.
Now, there's no reason for conflict between Israel and Lebanon. And if it weren't for the radical terrorist group Hezbollah, Lebanon and Israel would be allies and live side by side in peace. It's a point Greg Sheridan made today.
There is no quarrel between Lebanon and Israel. Hezbollah is a fundamentalist extremist fanatical Shiite terrorist group, prescribed under Australian law as an outlawed terrorist organisation. Its core ideology involves a hatred of the West, a hatred of Jews, a hatred of Israel, a determination to wipe Israel off the map.
Now, a lot of Australians have family in Lebanon and will be looking on in horror about what's happening in their country. The Lebanese population, and Christians in particular, are in dismay at the war Hezbollah is on the brink of invoking. There's no love lost between Hezbollah and Lebanese Christians. The 15-year Lebanese civil war only ended in 1990, the suffering still a vivid memory. And it's why there was so much goodwill and empathy by Lebanese Christians for the Israelis attacked by Hamas on October 7. No one in Lebanon or Israel or Australia wants to see innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. And Netanyahu last night spoke directly to Lebanese citizens, saying that Israel's war wasn't with them.
The IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously. Don't let Hezbollah endanger your lives and the lives of your loved ones. Don't let Hezbollah endanger Lebanon.
There's no question the Islamic terror groups are wreaking havoc in the Middle East, thanks to the funding of Iran. There's also increasing coordination between Hamas and Hezbollah, all orchestrated by Iran. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and Hezbollah head Hassan Nasrallah have even been pictured together. You can see them on the screen. They're united by their hatred for the West, for Jews, and their desire to destroy Israel. And in this photograph, you can see the Hamas and Hezbollah leadership meeting, and there's photographs of Iran's supreme leaders on the wall. Now, Hezbollah is one of the richest terror organisations globally. Its annual budget around $1 billion US. And Iran gives the group hundreds of millions of dollars a year. For nearly a year now, Israel has been urging Hezbollah to back down, saying it doesn't want to go to war. Hezbollah has chosen this path. It has chosen war. Perhaps if the international community had put more effort into pressuring Hezbollah, Hamas and their supporters, if they truly squeezed Iran, we may not be in this predicament.